Welcome to a brand new episode of Load In, Load Out, a tour story podcast produced here in Athens, Georgia at the state-of-the-art Kindercore vinyl pressing facility. On this episode, Cash sits down with drummer Lemuel Hayes backstage at the Georgia Theater. Lemuel plays drums on the brand new album from Cindy Wilson on the Kill Rock Stars label. They're getting ready to hit Europe for a series of dates, followed up by a run through the American Midwest. Topics of conversation include, but are not limited to, a good-natured heads up on the realities of touring China, getting off the disabled list and returning to rock after an egregious injury, and two shockingly decent Meatwad impressions. Enjoy!
Well, anyway, this is welcome to Load In, Load Out. I'm Cash Carter. We've got Lemuel Hayes here with us. I'm going to call you Lemmy throughout the podcast,
okay.
if that's okay.
You know, at Hilo, I realized the other night that the cashier that it says on the bar is Lemmy K. Which is pretty baller. You know, got to give it up.
All right.
You know, I took his essence. I haven't started drinking Jack and Cokes and doing cocaine off hookers, but I mean, I guess I'll get there.
I mean, that's where we all aspire to end up being, right? I mean, that's why we got into this industry. So anyway, the list of bands you've played with is extensive.
It's dumb.
So I'm not even going to attempt to list them all.
You shouldn't.
So you go ahead. Oh yeah, and also, as Bill just reminded me, we're in the Georgia Theater right now, backstage in the green room while bands are playing. If you hear anything in the background,
And there's hookers with blow behind us, so if there's just screaming and stuff, it's cool.
Yeah,
it's cool.
That's true. Although I thought the screaming back there was all the other musicians who were angry that they couldn't be in here with us. Anyway, list of bands that
it's lengthy.
Yeah, well, give us a few.
You should talk about the bands.
Yeah.
So not okay. I mean, I'm here tonight playing with Cindy Wilson for the Athens show at the Georgia Theater. Also, it's gonna be fun and weird because Sunday we're playing with Cindy in Nashville, which is where I live now, and Olivia Jean is opening, who I've also played for. Some others, let's see, in Athens, I play with Pacific UV actually still, even though that's kind of it's in hibernation or whatever the hell it is. Mm-hmm. Played with Monahan, who also plays with Cindy. We'll go through some Athens lists. Ruby the Rabbitfoot, Electrophoria, White Violet, the Viking Progress, subbed with a number of other bands randomly here and there in town. And then I've played on some records that I didn't ever perform live, like what do you call that project? I don't remember. It's weird. That's like a weird thing in the session world, man. You play on something and it's like a guy and you just think it's gonna be his name because no one ever tells you anything differently. Right. And then the record comes out and they're like, really like the thing Lemuel Hayes for playing on this. I was like, what the fuck is this? Oh, okay, I remember this song. This was called something else as a project when we did it. That's cool. And then in Nashville, I mean, Nashville's a whole other can of worms because no one really has a set band until you get to like super pro level.
Right.
So, but there I've played with Michaela Ann, J.P. Harris, who I love to death, Buck and Stuff, which is my Buck Owens tribute band with Adam Kurtz and Cameron Karras, Zach Schmidt, Triple Run. I'm gonna forget a lot. This is a long list. Yeah, I'm just going to give up.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Needless to say, you're a drummer.
Yeah.
Anyone who knows anything about the world of musicians, if there's someone who's been in that many bands, they're typically a drummer.
Yeah, probably. I aspired to be a drum slut early on.
I mean, usually if I have a friend who's in like 10 bands at once, it's typically a drummer.
It's true. That or in Nashville, it tends to be a bass player.
Really?
Actually, because there are just not enough bass players that aren't knobs.
That's what I felt about drummers, is there's a lot of drummers out there, but there's not many that are like, either they're too good, and what I mean by that is they're going to try to show off too much and not play what they're supposed to play, or they're not good enough.
True. I agree.
It's hard to find a drummer that's right there in the middle that doesn't overplay, but is good enough to play whatever you need them to play.
Agreed.
It's a very, very difficult thing to find.
Mm-hmm.
So who have you been touring with the most?
In my life or in a recent.
I guess recently in your life or whatever.
Let's see. I guess the most road time probably has happened with JP in the past few years. White Violet had a pretty decent stint of road dates. JP though, I played with. He was the first tour I took after I broke my arm and was back in action, and I toured with him for pretty much almost exactly a year. I went to Europe with him. I went to pretty much anywhere from Kansas City, that line, and east.
Mm-hmm.
I went with him. Did Newport Folk Festival, which was awesome. He took me on a lot of really, really rad shit, and I had a great time.
How'd you break your arm?
I got street justice from jaywalking. I ran across 5th Street downtown in Nashville and tripped, and it was go face first into a chain link fence because of where I was, or just fall, and I felt like I could fall and not break anything, and I was fucking wrong.
How long were you out for that?
Well, I did technically play 3 gigs when my arm was in a condition that
Bon Jovi it? One hand.
That's Def Leppard.
Excuse me, Def Leppard. Ah, yes, sorry.
But, interestingly, it's funny because you kind of you think that he played the snare with his hand, but he doesn't. He plays the snare drum with his left foot, which is insane.
Yeah.
And just bananas. But
he had a lot of pedals for the different drums and stuff, right?
Totally. And, the interesting thing about, in his case, when you lose an appendage, the thing that your body never does, I learned this from the DW rep back in the day, who's now the Zildjian rep for the Southeast in terms of stores and stuff, because he lost his leg in a motorcycle accident. He's like, your body never regains the equilibrium because it thinks that your prosthesis weighs the same thing as your normal leg, and it doesn't. It weighs like 1/10 of it. So you just fall. So he's like, Rick Allen will just fall getting on the riser or doing other stuff. I just randomly fall, and it's weird.
Just because you think that you weigh a certain amount.
Yeah, you're not able to, your body isn't able to adjust for the balance of that. It thinks that your body's symmetrical still.
So when they start doing, we've been talking about Blade Runner a lot, if they start making parts for us, they need to take weight into account.
Yeah. Which is, we can also get into Deus Ex if we really want to do some of that. Because, there's a lot of, I'm going to finish the arm break story, and then I'm going to go down this path. So, but I was out. I took 3 gigs. I played my friend's wedding, who's actually in Athens. I met him in Athens, Matt Whitaker. I played with him. He was in Young Benjamin, and I played on his record. But I had agreed to play. That was my wedding gift to him, is we agreed to do a really discounted rate to play his wedding. And it was a great time, and I'm really glad that I did it. But I basically bought a wrist brace that you would wear if you were rollerblading and roller skating, and I just gaff taped it to my arm. Because I could squeeze my hand, I just couldn't hold my wrist straight because I had no your upper forearm. I had no muscle mass and no ability to control it. So I just held it and just meat handled it, which was cool until we started playing Duran Duran and shit like that. But the other gig I did was my friend John Gladwin, who I met here but lives in Atlanta now. I played his EP release, which I did not do justice to because this really great session player, Evan Hutchings out of Nashville that John grew up with, played on it. And I was like, cool, I can't play that fucking part right now, so I'm just not going to play it. But that was fun, and I played, there was the gig with Olivia Jean, actually. We opened for Pixies in Indianapolis.
Wow.
But her stuff is kind of mid-tempo kind of rock. And it was just banging out meat handing some eighth notes with a wrist brace, and also it's I'm opening for Pixies. I'm gonna take this gig.
I'm gonna figure out what I have to do to play this.
Yeah. So I did that.
Was this post Kim Deal Pixies?
Yes. They had gotten back together, and then Kim pounced, so it was Paz on bass.
Okay.
And she was a fucking sweetheart.
Yeah.
She's so nice and so European. Smoking and drinking wine outside the venue before the show. It's all right, whatever, dude.
Yeah. And Breeders are probably one of my very favorite bands of all time.
Oh, yeah, for a good reason, because they still crush it.
Yeah.
But I was out from January 19th of 2015. I was in the middle of recording a record. We did Saturday, Sunday was off, and then Monday we were going to be back at it. So I'm on half that record. And I broke it, and then I had the surgery on the 26th, and I couldn't lift my wrist until probably July 16th. So then I did physical therapy. And,
wow.
I had a great physical therapist. She was cool. She was like, yeah, you should definitely start playing. Don't overdo it. Like as soon as your arm starts to feel really tired, stop. And that honestly worked. I just would play like really simple stuff day in, day out. But while that was all going on, I had maybe a year and prior to that played Deus Ex all the way through like 3 times. And I really thought a lot about like, man, I could really go for a bionic arm right now. That'd be pretty tight.
And a lot of people have been talking about like the what do they call it, like post-humanism or something? Transhumanism, that's it. Mm-hmm. And how scary that is. I'm like, no, dude, bring it on. I'm ready for it. I'm all for it.
Well, so I'm gonna get real heady because this is also a Blade Runner argument, or like kind of Headspace specifically. So the character you play in Deus Ex Human Revolution, which is the one that came out and that I had played, he's literally the only dude on Earth that has these augmentations that he didn't ask for. He was the head of security at this company that developed them. And everyone else that saw the attackers died except him, and the only way to keep him alive was to put those parts in him. So he like lives, the whole thing focuses on that kind of, that he's on the blade there, that he has them, but he didn't choose them.
Right.
So people try to give him a bunch of shit in the thing, and they don't understand that he literally had no choice. He was like thrown through a fucking wall or blown through whatever video game shit. But it was a really interesting point, and then it's gotten way too poignant because there's also this whole thing about the Illuminati and like ulterior controls, which at the time I kind of was like, man, that part's really out there, and then this Russia shit has really blown that into a really weird space, and now this game feels way too poignant. Which it did. Strangely though, those dudes deserve credit because I had just done I did a 2-week tour of China with Pacific UV, which is a very daunting tour. If you're ever going to tour China, it's an independent band. I will. My website is Lemuel Hayes. Shoot me an email because I swear to God, you need to talk to me first, because it is weird and there is shit that you need to know if you've never.
Let's
been
go
there.
into that.
So, nothing runs on time except for high-speed rail, but high-speed rail is the most expensive way to travel.
Right.
But I didn't take an interior flight within China that was delayed by like an hour and a half minimum, which that you're like, that's not a huge thing. But I also had 7-hour delays, and the problem with this is that, let's say you're trying to book this tour and you're trying to make it profitable, so you're probably stacking like Tuesday. We stacked Tuesday to Saturday we'd play. Well, that means your flight, let's say, is 4 hours. You've allotted 2 hours leeway, your flight gets delayed by 4. Now that's eaten into your sound check time, or your load-in sound check, fuck off time in that town. So what would really commonly happen, with no shit, almost every day, is whatever our transport was, I would get there, we'd immediately there would be backline, I'd have to set it up, we'd sound check, and they'd be like, okay, you have 30 minutes and then you play. I haven't eaten since breakfast. Right. So then it's like, okay, there's nowhere that I can, the fast food thing there, you can do, but it's also the most expensive thing, and it's the fastest thing, besides walking into a 7-Eleven and just buying, fucking Oreos and iced coffee, which is what I did, and probably the only reason I didn't honestly get, really sick from having just no, because it was also, we would play 90 minutes minimum each night. Non-stop, and it's a rock show, so I was gone. The China part was 2 weeks total. It was 3 weeks, and I came back and I had lost 15 pounds. And I mean, at the time, I'm heavier now than I was then, and if I lost 15 pounds now, I would be pretty gaunt. Then I was probably 170, and I lost 15 pounds, so I came back at 155, and it was just my face was pretty sunken, and it was I just felt like Christian Bale.
This week, we'd like to shine a little light and love on You Lead Athens. You Lead Athens is a group of and underdocumented leaders in Athens, Georgia, with the goal of equal access to higher education for students of immigrant families who are in or have recently graduated from high school. U-Lead students, along with public school, university, and community mentors and allies, work towards this goal by 1. Studying for college entrance exams, 2. Applying to colleges and scholarships that will accept students of varying documentation status, and 3. Finding financial support for attending institutions of higher education. To learn more about them and their mission, go to uleadathens.org. That's the letter U, leadathens.org. We now return you to our regularly scheduled program.
Funny story about that.
You know, go ahead with that one.
So I played this, one of the weirdest shows I've ever played. It was in, I think it was Terre Haute, Indiana. It was either Terre Haute or Bloomington, I can't remember. It was, I don't even remember the club name. I just remember we played. The owner of the club was super nice. We ended up staying with her. It was May 1st, which is the night before my birthday, and there wasn't a show the next day, so I was celebrating that night. So I'm on stage breaking down the kit, and there's just a DJ after us. So I'm just trying to like break it down as fast as possible. I'll throw it in cases. I'm not paying attention to anyone. But I noticed that there's this person standing at the front corner. And so I'm like, all right, we're going to see what this is about. I'm a single man at this time. So I was like, yeah, let's do this, I guess. It's a girl. And I get about 10 feet away. It's not even a big stage. I mean, that's like half the distance.
Right.
And she's like, oh, you're not him. Which is always like okay. Could you have said something more cryptic? And I was like, who did you think I was? James Blunt. Okay, let's break this down. I just played in what is essentially a dark wave band.
Right.
Playing drums. Why the fuck would James Blunt be playing drums in a dark wave band in Indiana? So I was like, you're right. I'm not him. Sorry. I mean, I thought about using them, like being like, but you're beautiful, and then eating a bullet. But anyway, then later that night, I got another weird one where this guy was like, he liked us, and he was we were just all being friendly and clearly drinking, and he was like, let's do shots, birthday shots. And then we got him, and he's like, you kind of look like Christian Bale. And I was like, I don't, but thanks. There you go.
No.
I had my only option that night, because I was so fucking wasted. I was the last out of the van, and the last room left in this woman's house were her like 10-year-old daughters, and the whole room was pink, and that was the only bed. And I just like felt I was like, I'm not fucking sleeping in a 10-year-old's bed as drunk as I am. That's like too fucked up.
Too perverse.
So I just like rolled out my sleeping bag and slept on the floor.
The gentleman's choice.
Yeah.
I mean,
But you know what you were saying about it in China? It was similar when we were in Japan. Like, we had a vegan who was on tour with us, Chad Matheny, who does Emperor X now, but he was in my old band, the Cadets. And trying to tour as a vegan in Japan, it might be okay now. This is 2001.
It's probably still pretty fucking hard.
And so, like, he came back. He had lost, like, 20 pounds.
Yeah.
But what you were saying about the train being on time is Bullet Train was, like, on time to the point where...
Yeah.
I think one of the ways that people would off themselves that would bring most dishonor to their family would be to jump on a bullet train because
it would delay the train.
And if it delayed the train, then the family was charged money.
Right.
But they were always like spot on time.
Yeah.
On time.
And we took a slow train from Chengdu, which honestly Chengdu it's a weird city, but I had the best time there and in Shenzhen, which is Hong Kong Part 2, basically.
The sequel.
It really, I mean, it is. It's just on the other side of the water, and it's China.
Right.
But it feels like Hong Kong because there's so many expatriates, British expatriates. So, but Chengdu, we took a slow train.
Do they not have because when we went to Japan, we were warned ahead of time that we could get a rail pass that saying we were tourists. And it cost us one fee up front, and we could use that pass for the entire month.
Oh, we just did this because Chengdu is really far west. It's pretty close. It's the closest really large city to the Himalayas.
Okay.
So like the world's largest building, which in terms of square footage, is in Chengdu. It's a huge an absurd number of the Fortune 500 companies are in Chengdu, which is kind of interesting. But We had a great show. We played a small bar, literally called Little Bar, but it was sold out. It was awesome. There was like this huge group of women, and they were all of them had at least master's degrees. It was like 6 or 7. It was crazy. And one was a biomedical engineer. One was was the Chengdu newscaster, basically. She had a master's in journalism from a British school. It was like really cool. Met a lot of cool people. And but then we took a slow train, which that was some Blade Runner shit, because it's just fog the whole time at night. And then we passed this nuclear power plant, and so you just start to see this glow of all the lights at the facility, and then you can see the cooling towers in the very back, very dimly, and they're just like flashing with their red lights for the planes. That was pretty wild. But
start piping Vangelis music into the car.
I would have, except my phone was dead. And here's the thing about that train ride. Is that it was already supposed to be really long, like 20 hours. It turned out to be 32 hours. And I didn't pack any food because that's also complicated in China,
right.
At least for me at the time. And
it's because you only eat the young.
Yeah.
And you can't really pack the young when you get on a train.
I mean, you can, but you got to make sure it's like, well, how many do I need? Do I need 1? Do I need 2? Do I need to go with the carry-on size bag? Or can I
a backpack, carry? Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, we actually named our. That's funny because now I'm thinking about we named our merch bags because they were all identical suitcases, and we just had 1, 2, 3, 4, but no one could remember what was in 1 or 2. So I gave them very different names. So one was Kenny Rogers. One was Meatwad. I don't remember the other 2 though, because Kenny Rogers and Meatwad lasted the longest, so they stayed with us. The other 2 broke almost immediately.
I actually do a pretty good Meatwad, I think.
Let's hear it.
Let's see. Hold on, I gotta do it oh, my name is Meatwad.
Well, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm just coming home learning this. I'll do a pretty good one, but it's hard because the bubble.
I think it is a little bit better.
You gotta embrace the bubble, but it can't define it in the back of your throat. Right. It's because whiskey. When he says whiskey, that's the hard. I can't say it.
Well, it's just you can do the same when you do the really deep voice. It's like swallowing this kind of thing in the back of your throat, where it's like. You can get really deep if you do it. But it's like the same kind of thing where you have to have this, what you said, a bubble in the back of your throat.
Yeah. If we're going to tie this to drums, it's like when you have a really big drum, of course it sounds very clean and low. Right. And you can make a 14-inch drum sound pretty low, but it has that kind of, it almost gets that basketball, that honkiness in a certain section. I don't know. I'm going to tie that to drums because that's how I live my life.
What were some of the other things in China that you would warn someone about?
It's mostly just like that. The smog shit is for real, man.
Oh yeah.
It was weird because day 1 was Beijing and they had record lows. So it's the lowest it had ever been, which is in 10 years or something, which is still Salt Lake City levels, which is one of the most smog-ridden cities in the U.S. just because it's in a bowl.
Right.
But then we go to Chengdu. Second day in Chengdu, it's record high, and it looks like there's a fire somewhere in the city all day because there's just this haze that lives, and you can't see very far. It's fucked up.
Isn't it crazy that they are now taking climate change seriously and changing all of that, and now we're climate change, fuck that shit.
Yeah, it's we forgot that the fucking...
Right, now China...
We forgot when the water caught on fire in Cleveland, less than 50 years ago.
Right, now China is better about the environment than we are.
They got some catching up to do, though. It was,
well, they have better policies in place than we do now.
Correct, but they do, I will also say, they because they fucking have to.
Right.
Because it's crazy. It looks, you can have what should be a perfect day, and it will in a city, and it just looks like it's fucking overcast. It's insane. That part is for sure.
It's like the bottom floor in Fifth Element.
Yes.
When you go down far enough, you get into the fog and the smog.
Yeah.
We're gonna relate everything to science fiction on this.
That's how I do.
Yeah.
That's how I do.
You excited about what's the new one that Luc Besson's putting out? Valerian. Yeah.
I don't know a ton about it. I'll be honest, I have been so busy the past 2 or 3 months that I also Baby Driver, I was talking about that with someone today, and they clearly knew a ton, and I knew, like, I saw the little teaser trailer.
The only thing that makes me really want to see it is I love John Spencer Blues Explosion.
Yeah.
And apparently this movie was written around a John Spencer Blues
that's
Explosion
what I heard,
song.
yeah.
So I'm like, all right, they wrote a movie around they wrote it around Bell Bottoms, apparently, the song Bell Bottoms.
Oh, right on.
So I'm like, all right, that's enough to make me go see it. Because I'm a huge John Spencer Blues Explosion fan.
I'll go with you to that one. I love Edgar Wright.
Yeah.
But I guess I would say this is like a final follow up to the China thing. Is I don't want to sound like a klaxon about it. It's just that it's a pretty different world.
Oh yeah.
And in terms of touring, that's not a thing that a lot of American bands do. So there's not a ton of info about it. I feel like, and that's all because I don't want other people to have to deal with the shit that I dealt with. It was fucking dumb.
Yeah, well, I mean, we did Japan in 2001, and it's totally different. But, for example, we didn't have a car.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to carry all of our boxes on the bullet train everywhere we went.
Yeah.
And, like, if the bullet train at the venue didn't happen to be close to a stop, we're walking for 5 miles with our boxes basically on our backs. Like, I couldn't take my drums, so, we're using all the drums at the clubs, and they were all total pieces of shit drum sets.
See, and that's what I expected in China, and there were only, like, one real piece of shit kit, and it was in a weird college town that it turns out it was finals week when we were there, so no one came to that show. But, man, that was a weird town. I don't remember which city that was, but I remember
weird college towns over there are really weird.
Yeah.
Because we went to Okayama in Japan, which is a weird little college town. That was our best show, but it was... Going to a college town in a different country is really a bizarre... experience.
It's pretty strange.
Yeah, I have a photograph on my wall where like everyone was riding around. They had these umbrellas that attached to their bikes. Mm-hmm. So everyone was riding on a bike with an umbrella on the top. It was just really... That's
some pretty Mary Poppins shit.
Yeah,
right
like
there.
I have that image in my head for the rest of my life where everyone in this Japanese town is just riding around. It looked like some kind of weird, either old movie, like old silent movie or like... Sure. Our commercial for like one of those TVs or something like the bouncy ball commercial. It was crazy.
Oh, yeah, I could see that. I guess to relate this back and finish tying in the Deus Ex part is the character has to go to China in one part, and there's a part where you walk through the first time you walk through the Chinese like just streets. There's for real at night. There's just Chinese barbecue everywhere. There's carts that weren't there when you went into the club. You come out and there's like 10. And that was the only reason. That's honestly where I ate most of my food.
I've heard it's really good street food though.
Oh my god, it's so fucking good. It's because it's fresh. It's completely fresh. You say, I want this. You just point at it. They put it in a pan. And that's honestly the only way you can eat vegetables. Because unless you're going to drink the water and just say, I'm going to get that bacteria in my body. Because it's the same thing if they came to the U.S. It's not that it's dirty. It's just that it's totally different bacteria.
Right.
So that was the way I could get my vegetables. So I would just go through and pick every vegetable like anything green, and then I would normally get some weird like seafood if I was close to the water. And that was rad. And I had some really magical meals that I think about pretty regularly.
I still crave takoyaki that I can't get here.
Yeah. I mean, I had this huge like lasagna dish of sautéed vegetables and like cashews and nuts and shit with a whole fish grilled and just set on top of it. It was amazing.
You're sitting there at the table like, bring me my mead. Well, I am the king for the night.
Actually, what happened was Suni and I were the only ones in the restaurant, and we tried to order 2, and the woman was like, no. And we didn't understand. And then, so she was just like, okay. That's the only English word she knew. She just shook her head when we tried to do 2. Mm-hmm. She just said, okay, and walked away. No one spoke English. So they brought, before the food, we didn't order this, they just brought out a fucking heap of French fries. Maybe one of the largest orders of French fries I've ever been around. And it had ham medallions just randomly on it. Not in it, just on top. And mayonnaise. Because that's the thing that a lot of the Europeans do with fries. So
I do that with fries.
Okay, because you're a monster. And I was just like, I don't know what's happening, but I'm going to go with it. And then we paid, and it was this place that on the map that we looked at, I think it was maybe, I don't know if it was Google Maps or whatever, but it was it said it was a sushi place, which is the reason we went. It clearly wasn't, but it was still good.
Well, I went to an Italian restaurant in Japan. If you want to talk about advice for people touring in other countries, don't go to an Italian restaurant in Japan.
I can't imagine why.
Yeah. A little bit thinking about the cheese there.
Oh
man, I mean, no offense to any Japanese people out there, but the only place you could get decent cheese in Japan was at McDonald's.
Oh, I could see that.
But like, it wasn't cheese. I don't know what it wasn't even like American fake cheese. I don't know what it was. It was like orange plastic.
Yeah. I mean, I made the mistake of ordering pizza in Taipei the first time we went there, and that was not great. But that was weird because we were being interviewed by this magazine, and the issue they gave us to show, like, kind of be like, oh, this is what it's going to be like. It had Lady Gaga on the cover, and I was like, okay, let me tell you, one of these things is not like the other.
Right.
Which then became the same thing when we went to this record store, and they're like, live in Taipei this month, and it's like, Jason Mraz, Radiohead, Lady Gaga, Pacific UV.
Well, were you guys big over there?
Yeah, it was insane.
Really?
Dude, so we were in the record store because they were really good friends with the label that brought us over, and they just wanted us to like see it, and then we signed the little like Pacific UV CD divider. Mm-hmm. We did that, and it was game on. There were multiple people that said, I already own these, but I am buying them again so you can sign them because I don't have them on me. And they bought every record that's ever been released under Pacific UV, which was insane. And that happened, and then the next day we did the show, and they're like, okay, so you're gonna do a lottery. You're gonna walk out. We're gonna walk out on stage. We're gonna pull out these numbers, and those people are gonna get a whole prize pack and stuff, which is cool. So there was one for each band member, effectively. So then they wanted us to wear the number when we went back on stage from the encore, which is fine. We did that, and I thought that would be the only people we really had to deal with. And we walked outside, and there was a fucking insane line. I signed shit for an hour and a half.
Really?
It was fucking dumb. It was like it is the most. And then I came back to Athens. That was the last show of that run, and I played to 10 people at Go.
Right.
And I was like, yes.
Yeah, back home.
This is what I do it for.
The glory.
But it was also interesting because none of them tell you their real name. They all have English names.
Yep.
And I remember my favorite one was this girl, young, small, really kind of mousy, frail, thin girl, and I was like, hey, what's your name? Because I was trying to personalize all these, and she's like, Acid. And I was like, sick. And then I just signed it and we moved on. But I mean, because I don't know, they don't. It's weird. My name was really hard.
Oh, I'm sure.
There was no way.
They've probably never heard Lemuel.
Oh no! And then I tried to go by Lemmy, and that made it worse. So I would do this, and they were like L, and I was like, boom, let's go with that. They could handle that. But our handler there was cool. He went to school in Canada, so his English was fucking amazing, and he was rad. Jack.
You still talk to him?
I do. I'm Facebook friends with him. Although he stopped using it a lot because of the whole he's very politically oriented, and there's been a lot of politics shits going on in Taiwan. But yeah, because he knows, and there's Andy Baker that lived here forever. we went to his studio there, and now he's got a really nice studio.
I've seen some of the gear going into that.
Yeah, I helped him, advised him on buying some drum sets because he was just buying a bunch of stuff and putting it on a boat and taking it over there. So like, yeah, you're gonna buy a Bonham kit, buy it in the U.S., dude. Yeah. So we looked at a few and he'd send them to me, and that was really fun and like super nice to help because, man, he was great over there. He took us around and showed us everything, and I did have a really awesome, uncomfortable massage there because they all decided we should all go get Thai massages, which if you've never had a Thai massage, it's the most forcible massage that anyone really does.
So it's not really fun, it's more painful.
It's gonna like really, if you got like a knot, it's gonna break that shit up. That's what it's gonna do. They use their elbows to press into stuff. I mean, it's not like long, slow movements of the sweetest massage. It's not that. So we're like on the way there, and I, you know, the person that I am, just a little bit neurotic's like, all right, do I need to know any like Mandarin or something, man? Do I need to like do this? What? And he's like, no, we'll all be in a room together, man. And that was the plan, except that to start, what they do is they wash your feet in this basin, but they only have 3. And so I was last.
You were the odd man out.
So then they just didn't take me to that room. They took me to a separate room by myself, and they just open it, and I'm like, oh, fuck, no one's in here. And then they close it, and then someone opens it and drops these, like, clothes that I'm supposed to change into, which is already super weird. And it's a 2-hour massage. Because I thought we were all going to be together, and it was like...
you were going to talk shit, and, you know...
Yeah. And, like, Andy was going to riff, and it was going to be funny.
Right.
And
someone was going to pass gas and everyone's going to crack up.
Yeah, so the woman comes in to do the massage and she turns on the television, and I'm just like, whatever, man. I'm just going to watch this and try to zone out of this because I've never had a massage at all of any kind. And she keeps trying to talk to me, and I'm just like, I don't know what you're saying. I'm sorry. And I do that probably 10 times, and then she just finally stops. And then you know, after the silence happens, it's like, okay, cool. The only sound is the television. And I realized that this show, I mean, this is 2012, so I mean, I'm 5 years younger than, and she's clearly older than I am, and the TV show is an older woman seducing a younger man.
So she's preparing you for what's about to happen.
Oh no, man, let's not do this, dude. And then it's about that time that she starts like on my legs, which honestly, it got pretty rad towards the end where she did like the elbow super intense massage thing on my shin. And as a drummer, man, that is a tight part that is super hard, and it hurts so good. But yeah, the rest of that was like super uncomfortable because then like when it's over, I don't know that it's over.
Right.
I have no idea what's happening.
She's kind of staring at you.
No, she just leaves and closes the door, and I'm like, all right, and I don't have my watch, so I have no idea how much time's passed.
You're like, I might be in here for the rest of my life.
I'm gonna die here. And then it
was a clever ruse for them to fire you from the band, and you just didn't know it.
Yeah. And then the door slides open, and there's Andy's face, and he's like, "Is it open?" And I was like, "I guess it's done." And he was like, "Yeah, sorry about that."
Let's do a little bit real quick before we run out of time about Cindy, like what it's like to play on that project, what you got cooking tonight.
Sure. So yeah, that was entertaining. But so Cindy, brief synopsis with me is I met Ryan Monahan through a Craigslist ad in like 2007 or 8, and I was playing in his solo music, and then he had this guy that was playing drums in this Beatles cover band, and at the time that guy was working merch for Widespread. And then Widespread went back on the road, and so they were getting these gigs, and they needed a guy, and he asked me if I'd do it, so I learned all these Beatles songs, and we only did everything up through Revolver at that time. And one day we get this really bizarre email. It's not bizarre, it's just kind of lacking a lot of the standard info whenever someone's asking for a quote. It ended up being Cindy's husband wanting to hire us because they wanted to hire a Beatles cover band because their son loved the Beatles, but they wanted it to be from Athens if possible, and we were the only one at the time, at least, that was affordable because we were noobs. It was a long, crazy day for a lot of reasons unrelated to anything regarding Cindy, but it was they really liked us. They thought we were great, and we came back and played the Halloween party that year, which is really where this story starts, because like a week before she emailed us, or Keith, her husband, emailed us and was like, hey, she'd like to do a song. She wants to do I Put a Spell on You, the Screaming Jay Hawkins version.
Mm-hmm.
If you guys want to learn it, she'll sing it with you at the party. And I was like,
okay.
Done. So we learned it. It was rad. And then, what happened is that people saw us at that party do that. So then they asked her to do the REM 30th party that wasn't really affiliated with REM, but it was a benefit for the Athens Food Bank.
Mm-hmm.
So they asked her to do that, and everybody else played only REM songs. They only played like 3, and they gave her an hour. So we played 3 or 4 REM songs, and then just whatever stuff she wanted to play. So it was all this psychedelia, 60s psychedelia. And then someone saw that, and they wanted to hire us to play the opening of the Salvador Dali exhibit at the High Museum, because we played all this 60s psychedelia. And so we did, and that was
with Cindy.
With Cindy. And it was a super rad gig. And then it kind of like went away for a minute. Bees were really busy, all that, and that's fine. And then I guess the next gig was Keith, her husband, was helping put together this Athrox. It's the organization that's preserving art and music in Athens. They were having a fundraiser, and that was, I guess, like 4 or 5 years ago. And we played here at the theater, and we did a bunch of songs, and that really lit the fire that Cindy was like, I want to work on some solo material. And then shortly after that, we got hired to do this gig at Chastain Amphitheater, which was really magical. And then this started happening, like this solo project, and it's been really cool. She wanted it to be collaborative. That was her main thrust. So Ryan was the primary guy that worked with her on songwriting. I was there to play drums, obviously, and I'm joined on drums by, she really wanted Sterling Campbell from the B-52s, and also many, many other acts, such as David Bowie, Duran Duran, just small fries no one's ever heard of. So we're on drums, and then Suni and Ryan, and we had some guests, John, Kieran Fernandez. He's on a lot of stuff. Like, he played multiple instruments on a couple songs. Slade Adams played strings on everything. And yeah, it was a long process. It was about 2 years in the studio, on and off between stuff. And it's the only record that I'm on with and without a broken arm. I recorded.
Very nice.
I recorded stuff. I just do it in pieces, and we basically quantize whatever needed to be quantized for that stuff, or line up any particular thing, which was really fun to know that someone believed in it enough that you could have gotten. Obviously, you could have gotten somebody else,
right?
But to keep me on.
Yeah, but honestly, what makes this album and all of this so great, and what makes me so excited about her album and everything she's doing right now, is that she didn't go that route. It would be really easy to rehash the past.
True.
And to get a bunch of people that are, literally just hired guns.
Yeah.
And you guys obviously aren't just hired guns. You guys are the band, and she put together, I can't think of a better band for her of everybody who's included. And she does this thing that, and I've said it to many people when I'm trying to describe how it is, I'm like, if I didn't know it was Cindy Wilson, I'd never heard it before, didn't know who Cindy Wilson was, nothing. If I heard this album, I would love this album either way. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
so it's so strange that she took this chance and it worked.
Yeah, I mean that was the thing, is she did not want it to sound derivative. She wanted to do something totally different, and we all wanted that. I mean, we're obviously all on board to do something cool, and it was a little bit of throwing paint at the wall, to see what stuck initially, and we all got forced. We all pull. It was definitely. It felt, you get that band thing where everybody gets pulled a little bit out of their element because you got all this stuff. So because with the B-52, she still sings pretty hard. It's a powerful band, and everybody's singing. And so in this, there's a lot of very, very soft, almost whisper singing. And she admitted that was something she had to work on. And that's cool. You've been doing music professionally for 40 years.
Yeah. Not only doing music, but one of the biggest bands ever.
Yeah, I mean, and to be like, oh yeah, I had to completely work on something else.
Yeah. But I mean, the real pros never stop learning.
Yeah, true.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
Agreed. And
that's why I stopped learning a long time ago.
So yeah, I mean, it's been super great. The LP's gonna come out sometime later this year, I think. There's no set date yet, but that's exciting. And when you do this stuff, you don't ever really know if it's gonna get traction. Like, she clearly doesn't need to do it in terms of a monetary thing. It's purely a personal pursuit that turned into truly something that everybody wanted to really put out. And you never know if it's gonna become that truly. And it's great to see it like released into the world and to also get the level of response that it has, where I really appreciate that you really genuinely enjoy it.
Yeah. I'm an asshole about music. I really am.
Only about music.
Well, we're going to be unpacking some issues on tonight's episode.
So the next step is that you have to get a Trixon set to play with Cindy Wilson.
So you want the honest answer? I haven't brought it because I know that she would be like, you need to play. I want to see that every gig.
Right.
And I kind of have these are the things.
You have the conical ones though, right?
I have the conical ones. So what that means for everyone at home is the side that I hit is a different size drum head than the other side of the drum.
So the thing here is that Lemuel always sends me links to. I'm obsessed with these kind of drum sets called Trixons, and the bass drum is kind of egg shaped, and they're really bizarre drums. And so every time we see each other, we talk about these Trixon drum sets.
Yeah, because not everybody is like infatuated with them, and I do. I have a vintage drum cartridge company in Nashville, so I do. Which
is great. So basically, you just rent out vintage drums for people for sessions and things like that.
Correct.
Which is an amazing idea.
Yeah, we're not alone in it. Yeah, Julian Dorio from the Wigs also does it with this guy Russ Pollard, and there's another guy.
Russ Pollard. He he played with Sebadoh for a little while.
Maybe, I'm assuming it's the same.
Yeah.
Same Russ guy. But and then there's another dude, Nelson, that does it. He also Nelson Drum Company, and he also sells a ton of vintage drums. But he does his rental stuff is mostly a lot of this stuff that he does in conjunction with this session guy and session drum tech guy, Nathan Stone out of Nashville. But yeah, all this stuff like tied into Cindy, and she loves the psychedelia part of it, and we had a lot of fun. We made all the videos for all the things. Like we filmed a ton of stuff when we first started rehearsals after we'd finished practicing, and that became the videos that we play during our set. And we finally added with the Supernatural EP, those were songs that we just felt like kind of stood on their own. A lot of the songs that are on the initial EP, Sunrise, are going to be on, a few of them will be on the LP, but nothing from Supernatural will be on the LP. And but it does have the first song we recorded and wrote with her, which is Ballistic, and that's in the set now. Tonight's going to be the first time we play it, which is pretty exciting.
Well, speaking of which, I think they've been going on for a while. I don't want to keep you too long because you're about to have to go on. And I'm sure you got to do some jumping jacks and stuff to get ready.
Jumping jacks, lunges, really got to activate my core.
Got to work on that. You got to tape a drumstick to your hand.
Yeah. Because clearly I don't have enough. I don't have enough drumsticks.
Right. Well, anyway, thanks for coming and hanging out with us for a little bit.
Thanks for having me.
Being backstage and at the Georgia Theater, and thanks to the Georgia Theater for letting us do this as well, and for Richard Lloyd for vacating the room and letting us do this, which was a very awkward thing to say. Like, it's freaking Richard Hellman. Like, hey, can you scoot out of there and we could use that space for a minute?
Hey, by the way, we're nobodies.
Right. But get the hell out. Anyway, thanks for being here.
Oh yeah, thanks for having me.
Yep.
And thank you for listening to this episode of Load In, Load Out, a tour story podcast produced by me, Bill Fortenberry. Our associate producer is Alex Scarborough. Our hosts, as always, are Ryan Lewis and Cash Carter. Join us back here next time for all brand new episodes. And remember, be kind.